Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn, and today we're back at it with another spoiler video for Magic the Gathering's Final Fantasy expansion. In this video, we're specifically going to cover all of the spoilers that dropped over the weekend, and there are a number of really cool cards to get into, but I just want to mention that if you haven't been keeping up with spoiler season so far, I have a ton of videos on the channel detailing all of the spoilers that have dropped up to this point, and also over the weekend I released another sort of bonus video covering all of the rares and mythics that are exclusive to the starter kit that you can only get in the starter kit, and those are all standard legal cards, so they are kind of relevant. So if you haven't seen that stuff yet, definitely check that out. I'm gonna link down below so you can check out all of those other videos we've done so far and get caught up with us. But this again is gonna cover all of the spoilers that dropped over the weekend. We're gonna dive in. Please like the video. It helps the video get out to more people, helps the channel grow, and subscribe if you're new because we will have a ton of crazy content on the way. But let's do it. First up, we have Blitzball Shot. This is 1 green and 1 for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample until end of turn. Pretty cool card. I mean, mechanically, this is functionally identical to a lot of cards we've gotten in the past. You know, +3/+3 trample at instant speed for 2 mana. Nothing to write home about. But flavorfully, being able to link it to Blitzball and to the Waka character from Final Fantasy X is pretty cool. They're taking advantage of opportunities to take somewhat boring cards mechanically and make them more interesting just because of the flavor from Final Fantasy that they can inject into the card, which I find really interesting, and it just seems like they're definitely getting all of the potential out of this set that they absolutely can, even down to the sort of uninteresting commons, which I love to see. Next up, we've got Ice Flan, a 5/4 elemental ooze for 2 blue and 4, and when this creature enters, you tap target artifact or creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it, which, you know, super expensive, not super efficient, but you could do a lot worse than to just kind of throw one of these at the top end of your limited deck. You know, the stun counter is kind of relevant. But most notably about this card is it has island cycling for 2 colorless mana. So this is a part of the land cyclers so that you can build 2 color, maybe 3 color decks in limited and have more ways at the common rarity to find the lands you need to color fix and to make your deck work. So having a card that can do that for relatively cheap, but also if you draw it later, it can be a valuable piece for you when you actually have enough mana to cast it. You can do a lot worse than to do that at the common rarity. And then just getting to have the elemental ooze here, the Ice Flan itself as a card is pretty cool. Next up, we've got Youre Not Alone, an instant for 1 white mana. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and if you control 3 or more creatures, it gets +4/+4 until end of turn. Absolutely love the flavor here. You've always protected us, but you still don't understand that we looked out for you too. Coming from Dagger in Final Fantasy IX. Very, very cool. Dagger being... I think Dagger was just the nickname. It's been a while since I played that one. I should replay it, actually. I played it a couple times back when it first came out, if you can believe it. And I haven't played it since. But I'm pretty sure the princess's nickname was Dagger. I don't think that was, like, her official name. Let me know in the comments if you know. But the flavor here is completely on point, and functionally it's also really, really cool. Like a 1 mana instant that gives +2/+2 isn't the best ever, but it's still kind of alright, just as is. But then if you're playing it in a go wide deck, +4/+4 at instant speed for 1 mana is kind of nuts at the common rarities. So this could be a really cool trick for just the right kind of go wide decks in limited, and I sort of love it. But next up, we've got Syncopate, an instant for 1 blue and X, and this is no stranger to people that are accustomed to Magic. This is a card that periodically gets reprinted into Magic sets, but it's cool that they found a flavor to go with here for Final Fantasy for this reprint. Counter target spell unless its controller pays X. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. Your eyes, they burn with resolve. Beautiful. Very, very cool. I believe that's Seymour from Final Fantasy X. And it makes perfect sense. Moving on, we've got Haste Magic. This is one I'm kind of excited about. An instant for 1 red and 1. Target creature gets +3/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. Exile the top card of your library. You may play it until your next end step. Now, this card, flavorfully, it makes perfect sense. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more from Haste Magic. I kind of wish we got a Haste Magic spell or a Time Magic spell that was tiered and had some kind of haste in it. But what I do really like about this card mechanically, functionally, is it shows that, at least it seems to me, Wizards is trying to get away from having more broken one-drop instant speed spells because prowess decks are so crazy right now, and they're trying to push a little bit further into, like, let's have spells that cost a little bit more, but give you a little bit more value to make up for it, because just hammering off a bunch of one-drop spells in prowess decks is already kind of hard to deal with, and it's only going to get harder as they print more and more of them. And if this card's any indication, it does seem like they're trying to slow down Standard at least a little bit, and move Red a little bit more into value as opposed to just absolute speed, and I'm perfectly cool with that because I think the format's a little bit too fast right now, Standard itself. But this is a pretty cool representation of Haste. I still hope we get like a Haste Magic tiered spell, and this kind of makes me think we might not, but I'm going to cross my fingers. Next up, we've got Poo Poo UFO, our first uncommon of the day. This is a 0/4 artifact creature construct alien with flying for just 2 colorless mana. So a big old flying butt that can defend aggro all day and be splashed into any deck you want actually seems kinda good for limited, even without seeing the other abilities. But then it has 2 abilities. You can tap it to put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield, or you can pay 3 colorless mana, and until end of turn, this creature's base power becomes equal to the number of towns you control. This card is just good. Just straight up good. Even if you're just running this in limited and just splashing a couple towns for fixing, if you just get like 1 or 2 towns out, this is still pretty good. Like a flying 0/4, you can hold up 3 mana and make your opponent not want to swing in with their 2/2 flyers, because you could theoretically just pay the 3 mana, turn it into a 2/4 flyer, kill their dude. You can really stave off a lot of aggro that way. It also doesn't have defenders, so even though it's normally going to function like a wall, later on in the game, this can become a game-ending threat, especially if you've drafted into like towns as an archetype. This is one of the better town payoffs we've seen so far. You just defend a ton of aggro early in the game, and then way later on, when you have a bunch of towns, this is just your win condition. You just turn it on and swing for like 5. And then you do that a few turns and then you win. But the fact that it can also ramp you just seems kind of push, just tapping it to put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. We've already seen a cycle of basic land cyclers in this set, so it could theoretically be easy to just fill up your hand with lands if you draft into the right archetype, and you could just start spitting them out left and right and then really go ham with some expensive spells. All of that seems really interesting to me. I'm curious if maybe this card might see Standard play, and like my gut says no, right? My gut says it's going to be a little too cute, like Standard super fast, all that stuff. But being a good blocker against the Is It Prowess decks gives it a little bit of an edge, and there's just a lot of value here. You can do stuff like use it with Agatha's Soul Cauldron to give all of your creatures the ability to tap to put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. And then all you need to do is find a way to fill up your hand with lands, and you just basically like put them all out. That could be kind of cool. You could trigger all of your landfall abilities, so there could be like a weird Chocobo landfall deck that is a combo deck that involves the Poo Poo UFO and Agatha's Soul Cauldron. I don't know, I'm getting way off base here and going down a rabbit hole, but what I mean to say is there is a ton of potential for this card, and my gut says it doesn't make the cut in Standard. It's probably going to be too cute, it's probably not going to be efficient enough, yada yada yada. But there is this outside potential of all these different ways that you can use this, that if the town deck is real in Standard and good enough, this could be an include. If that combo Chocobo deck with Agatha's Soul Cauldron is, you know, consistent enough, it could be a thing that you could see happen. There's definitely some stuff to explore, and that's exciting. But at the very least, I think in Limited, this card's actually going to be way more relevant than people are going to initially think. Just because we have seen a lot of landfall abilities that are going to be relevant in Limited. We're going to see, it seems like Town as an archetype could be relevant in Limited. And like I said, just a really good flying blocker early that could theoretically just be your win condition later on seems pretty good for Limited. So I think that, I don't know, the more I think about this card, the more I think it might be nuts. But next up, we've got Adelbert Steiner. This is another uncommon from the starter kit, but it will appear in booster packs as well. A 2/1 legendary human knight with lifelink for 1 white and 1, and he gets +1/+1 for each equipment you control. I actually think this guy's really good. I think he's going to be relevant in standard. There are going to be, not only is there going to be a relevant equipment deck in standard, I think there's actually going to be a few different varieties of relevant equipment decks in standard, because equipment is just that pushed with this set, and we already have a ton of value within standard for the equipment archetype that's been building up from set to set to set, and it's just not good enough. But then this set's just bringing so much power when it comes to equipment that all of that old value that's been sitting there just waiting for its time to shine is going to get its chance. And I definitely feel like there's going to be at least one of those equipment decks where you're trying to be super aggressive right out of the gate, and something like this could get really big really quick as your 2-drop. So there's definitely a chance this will see play in a standard deck, but it's absolutely going to be like a very important backbone card for the equipment archetype within Limited. Being that it's an uncommon, you're going to want to pick these up super quick and just double down on your equipment. It's really cool that a lot of the equipment at common and uncommon in this set, they are the different weapon types that grant the creature types and come with a creature token attached. So it makes it easier to run a deck, especially in Limited, that focuses around equipment, because you don't have to give up card slots that would be creatures to just play equipment. You have cards that are going to be both. That makes it way more viable to kind of go that direction, and being way more viable going that direction makes this card, and cards like this, that much more relevant. So I think this one's going to be pretty important. But next up, we've got Reno and Rude, one of my favorite uncommons spoiled so far. This is a 2/1 legendary human assassin with menace for 1 black and 1. And when he deals combat damage to a player, when they deal combat damage to a player, you exile the top card of that player's library. Then you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, you may play the exiled card this turn, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. I kind of love this. You see in the art that this is the fight on the pillar before the pillar collapses in Final Fantasy VII. Spoiler alert. And I feel like to a certain extent the ability kind of flavorfully mimics that, because you sacrifice an artifact or a creature, and that kind of might represent destroying the pillar, since technically Shinra owns the city of Midgar and they're destroying their own city, right? So that's kind of some interesting flavor here. But mechanically, I just love this card. Just having a cheap menace creature that counts as a human, that counts as an assassin. We've already done Assassin Tribal a couple sets ago, and it was kind of relevant. It just needed a little bit more gas to be really good, and a 2-drop like this could be everything it needs. Getting to, play the stuff from your opponent's deck by sacrificing things means it can also fit into like a sacrifice style deck, an aristocrat style deck, and get you extra value. Gives you a free way to sacrifice to trigger all your sacrifice payoffs, your death trigger payoffs, and that sort of thing, while also getting extra value on top of it by being able to play something from your opponent's deck. And getting this down on 2 with Menace means there is a really good chance you're going to at least get to swing in once and get through, and they might not have enough blockers to stop it, so that you can get that value. Just everything about this card I kind of love. And it's I think Aristocrats as an archetype is going to be super, super powerful after this set drops, just mostly on the back of the new Sephiroth card, Sephiroth Fabled Soldier. That card is just like literally the best card we've ever got for Aristocrats, and seeing even more support come in the form of a card like this that gives you a free sack outlet, even if it is only one thing a turn, it's just really, really nice. And I'm definitely going to try to brew that, because I think that deck's going to be wild. But next up, we've got 𝐽𝐿𝐽𝐒, a 2/3 legendary Q for 1 green and 2. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 green frog creature token are created instead, and you can pay 2 mana and sacrifice a frog to put a +1/+1 counter on 𝐽𝐿𝐽𝐒. This card is perfectly flavorful. The fact that she always wants to eat the frogs in Final Fantasy IX, and that's what you get to do, It's interesting that you can sacrifice any frog too. It doesn't have to be one of the tokens that she makes. So you could play with like creatures with changeling that technically count as frogs. You could just go frog tribal, maybe use some of the stuff from 𝔽𝕝𝕟𝕝, make a crazy Queen of 𝔽𝕝𝕝 deck. There's a lot of potential for a card like this. And I feel like this card might be good enough to see standard play. Just getting an extra creature token every time you make a token's kind of nuts. Token decks in general, the power of token decks have just been pushed up to 11 over the last few sets. Turned up to 11 rather, not pushed up to 11. I'm tired, leave me alone. But those types of decks are really powerful right now, and having even more payoff in those decks. If all this did was give you an extra 1/1 creature every time you made a token, it would still be good. But the fact that you can also start sacking tokens to add counters to her, you can do it at instant speed. It's for an uncommon, it just seems kind of pushed. It's going to be awesome in limited. And I think there is going to be a place for it in standard as well, but let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Next up, we've got Queen Braun. She's so obnoxious. I hate this character. She's from Final Fantasy IX. A 2/1 legendary human noble for 1 red and 2. She has prowess, and whenever she attacks, you create a 0/1 black wizard creature token with whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this token deals 1 damage to each opponent. She's going to be absolutely nuts in limited. If you can just set up a situation where you can get through for a couple attacks with her, just having those wizards that sit there and just ping or shock your opponent every time you cast a non-creature spell, you eventually burn out your opponent, which is awesome. The prowess could make her big enough that she can survive combat. Like I said, if you can just get 1 or 2 triggers off of her, you could probably win the game off the back of that in limited. I think it's going to be really powerful. The thing that I like best about this card is we have confirmation that now this is I think the 3rd, it could be the 4th, but I think it's the 3rd card we've seen that makes these 0/1 wizards that ping for a damage when you play a non-creature spell. And that gives me a ton of hope because I so desperately want to try to build a standard legal deck built around these wizards and have it almost be like the new aristocrats, the new sacrifice style deck. Instead of having to sacrifice things to get death triggers to drain your opponent out, instead you're getting all these wizards out and you're just playing non-creature spells to get these triggers, these pings to kill your opponent. And it would almost be like a new way of doing aristocrats without having to lose your creatures, and instead, doubling down on ways to play non-creature spells. I just think a deck archetype like that would be super fun if there are enough cards that are good enough that make these tokens. And I don't know if Queen Braun herself is good enough for standard. It might be too slow at 3. But at least it gives me hope that there are more cards coming that are doing this, that are making these tokens, and we might be able to put a deck like that together in standard. If it seems like it's a viable possibility, I'm definitely going to do it during early access because I just think that would be super, super fun. But either way you slice it, at the very least, Queen Braun's going to be awesome in limited. That value can just end games without you ever having to attack again if you can just get in a couple times with her and make those tokens. But next up, we've got Coral Sword. 1 red for an artifact equipment with Flash. It equips for 1 colorless mana. Equipped creature gets +1/+0, and when this equipment enters, you attach it to target creature you control. That creature gains first strike until end of turn. So for 1 mana at instant speed, any creature gets +1/+0 and first strike. So it's a combat trick. It allows you to kill your opponent's creature without dying most of the time. That's when you're going to want to use it, which is already pretty good. It can function like removal if you're smart in how you play it, but then it just leaves behind this lasting +1/+0 as extra value, and then it equips for just 1 to add that +1/+0 to another creature if you want to. I think this card is way better than it looks on the surface, specifically just because it is a very, very efficiently costed equipment. Just the fact that you can get an equipment out onto the battlefield for only 1 mana at instant speed that will then fuel all of your equipment synergies. If there are cards that get better the more equipment that you have in play, cards that trigger off of playing equipment, cards that trigger off of equipping things, any of those kinds of synergies are just really, really good with an equipment like this that's just super, super cheap. So you have to take those kinds of synergies into account, and again, we haven't seen the whole set, so I don't know 100% how good that's going to be or how good it's going to matter, but that at the very least we know a ton of equipment synergies are coming, and that does give this card a chance at being way better than it just appears in a vacuum. So keep that in mind. And once the full set is spoiled, we're going to do a set review for this set, and I'll have a much better idea of just where some of these cards land. But for now, it at least has a lot of potential, and I'm excited about that. Next up, we've got Side Quest Play Blitzball. This is an enchantment for 1 red and 2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And at the end of combat on your turn, if a player was dealt 6 or more combat damage this turn, transform this enchantment and then attach it to a creature you control. Now, this is a standard legal card, but it definitely reads like a card that's much better in Commander, because you have so much more of an opportunity to get to that 6 damage threshold and flip this while you still have a lot of game left to play, where you get to use the backside for a lot more. That being said, even in one-on-one, in Standard or whatnot, this could be good. 3 mana at the very least, even if you never flip it. Your best creature gets a +2 power buff every turn, and you get to pick a different one every turn, so like killing the creature doesn't really get rid of it. And then you get that extra value, so if you do hit through for 6 damage and you flip it, you get World Champion Celestial Weapon, a legendary artifact equipment that equips for 3, but it also has double overdrive. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has double strike. So it's still kind of like you get the extra +2 power every single turn, except you don't get to choose a different creature every turn if you want. You have to kind of commit to whatever this equips. But when you flip it, you do get to attach it for free. So that first equip is free. You don't have to pay that 3 colors the first time it equips. So getting access to double strike in addition to the +2/+0, kind of for free, just by, doing the 6 damage and flipping this thing, is pretty awesome. There are some circumstances where you're just going to turn on double strike for no mana, and that's going to be hugely relevant. So pretty awesome in my opinion. I don't know just how good. It could be too slow for Standard, but again, equipment in general, all equipment are just gonna be a little better than they otherwise would be, so you got to keep that in mind. This could end up being nuts because of that. Equipping for 3 is a little bit costly. At the very least, in Limited, I think this card is going to be really good. You can afford to, have this come down a little bit early for 3 mana and just get the +2 value in Limited, and then potentially flip it if you're in the right deck. So it'll be interesting to explore the different ways we can use this card. I think the potential is there for Standard, but I'm not entirely sure if it's efficient enough to quite make the cut. Next up, we've got Titus. Sorry, everyone in the comments last time told me I needed to pronounce it Titus. But I don't know, when I was playing this game growing up and stuff, I always pronounced it Titus. See, here I'm going to go off on a tangent for just a second before we finish talking about this card. All of the main characters from the Final Fantasy games during the PlayStation and PlayStation 2 era had names that made sense with water. Right, that connected to water in some way. So you had Cloud in Final Fantasy VII. A cloud is evaporated water. And then in Final Fantasy VIII, you had Squall, and a squall is another name for a small rain shower. So then when we had Final Fantasy, I guess 9 doesn't fit in, right? Because Zidane, what is Zidane? I don't think that connects to water. It might. Let me know in the comments. But Final Fantasy X, you have what looks like Tidus, like the tides in an ocean. So to me, it just always made sense to pronounce it Titus. And I know that technically, it's Titus, and that you're supposed to pronounce it Titus. But in my opinion, my memories and my nostalgia and the way that I felt about it at the time that I played it, and how I pictured it in my head because of that, is just worth more to me than being correct. So I'm just always going to say it Titus. I'm sorry to anyone out there that offends, but to me, he's just Titus. He's a 2/1 legendary human warrior for 3 mana in the colors of `𝑖zorius. Whenever an artifact you control enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on him, and whenever he attacks, you tap target creature an opponent controls. Kind of good. I don't know if he's good enough for Constructed, probably not, but in Limited, he's going to be nuts. Every time he swings, you tap down their best blocker, and you get to put a counter on him every time an artifact enters. I feel like that's like perfectly representative of Blitzball. We have seen, I believe there are some Blitzball cards that are relevant as artifacts that kind of reference Blitzball, so sort of makes sense with this, but I think the artifact side of it is just supposed to represent like objects, with the Blitzball being an object, so it's almost like every time he takes possession of the Blitzball, he's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and tapping down the blocker almost feels like, you know, navigating your way past one of the blockers in the game. So I really like the flavor of it. I think it's going to be really good in limited. I don't think it's quite there for constructed though. Next up, we've got Lindblom, Industrial Regency. This is the only rare that we've gotten over the weekend, but it's a good one, man. This is a land town that taps for 1 red mana and enters tapped. This is a part of the cycle of rare lands, rare monocolored lands that have an adventure attached to them. This one being an instant called Mage Siege for 1 red and 2. You create a 0/1 black wizard creature token. With whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this token deals 1 damage to each opponent. So again, this is the 4th card. We've got more support for the wizard tribal kind of just ping for a bunch if you have a bunch of wizards out every time you play a non-creature, and I love that. It's also worth noting that these lands are kind of like the modal double-faced lands from Zendikar, except they're even better because after you use like the spell side, you still get to play the land afterwards. So you only really need to play this as the land if you're desperate and you get it early and you need to make your land drop. But having that extra value to cast Mage Siege and then play it as a land seems kind of good. In fact, on turn 4, you could just play the Mage Siege and then play this as your 4th land tapped. And that seems pretty decent depending on, you know, what your turn 1 and turn 2 looked like. This just gives me even more hope that that Wizard Tribal deck I was talking about will exist. And even the Mage Siege itself being an instant can trigger all of the wizards that you've already created. So you're not just getting another wizard token, right? You're also getting a prowess trigger. You're getting something that triggers non-creature spell stuff. So I think there is more value in this adventure than what it looks like on the surface when you actually end up seeing it in action in decks that are built around taking advantage of it. But getting that kind of for free just on your land just seems super good to me. I don't know, maybe I'm over evaluating these adventure lands, but I think they're all going to be nuts and they're all going to see play. This one's just to me, I feel like it's kind of bananas. Maybe it's just because I'm so excited about trying to build that deck, but I love this. Next up, we've got our first mythic of this video. This is Buster Sword, artifact equipment for 3 colorless mana. It equips for 2 colorless mana. Equipped creature gets +3/+2, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. Then you may cast a spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to that damage without paying its mana cost. This card could be nuts. Again, I sound like a broken record, but just the fact that it's an equipment means this has the potential to be way, way better than it looks in a vacuum, because it can just pile all of those equipment synergies on top. Cloud itself can search this out, and if you equip it to Cloud, you get double draw triggers and double free cast triggers, which is kind of insane. The +3/+2 means that you're significantly boosting the power of the creature that it's equipped to increase the chances of being able to cast something that much more expensive for free off of the trigger. I think the only real downside to this card is how expensive it is. You have to invest a whopping 5 mana before you ever get the chance to even attack it and get the trigger. And if they don't let you deal combat damage, either by blocking or hitting it with instant speed removal or whatever, you invested all that mana for nothing. So if it wasn't for this set being so deep into equipment and seeing so many synergies that have already dropped and potentially more on the way, I would probably think that this card's a little too cute, a little too expensive, not efficient enough. But I have to think that because of all of the equipment synergies that are bound to come, this card has to be good, right? There has to be ways to play this for cheaper, to equip it for cheaper, to make it way more efficient, to be able to play it at without losing so much tempo, right? And I feel like there's gotta be a way to build a standard legal deck where this is super relevant, because equipment's absolutely gonna be a thing, and I find it hard to believe that there wouldn't be a way for this to be relevant in standard. So even though on the surface it looks like it's too expensive to me, and if we don't have any ways to get this out cheaper, equip it cheaper, or whatever the case may be, that would be my opinion of the card. I have to just kind of have faith that there are going to be enough ways to make this efficient enough to really see play and be absolutely nuts in the right deck. And I'm hoping so, man, because equipment deserves its time in the sun. It's been so neglected for so many years, and no matter how much support they give it, it just hasn't got there, and it's time. It's time for equipment decks to be real and standard. Quarry Steel Cutter just dropped in the last set, and it's one of the best equipments that we have in standard. I have to believe that that's a sign, and there has to be an equipment deck that can make this work efficiently, right? There just has to be. I'm gonna keep the faith, because this card looks awesome power level wise. We just need to make sure that we can play it efficiently. And next up is the last card of this video, Nebleheim of Flame. This card is absolutely perfect from a flavor perspective. A sorcery for 2 red and 2. You choose target creature you control. It deals damage equal to its power to each other creature. And if this spell was cast from a graveyard, you discard your hand and draw 4 cards. And then it has a flashback cost of 2 red and 5. How perfect does this card represent the Nebleheim of Flame flashback within the Final Fantasy VII game? It's absolutely perfect. First of all, the act of just playing this, it mirrors Sephiroth destroying the entire town of Nibelheim. Like, just doing damage equal to his power to everything else, just absolutely decimating everything around him, is perfect flavor for that moment. But then there's a whole nother layer of flavor built into this card, where Cloud has a flashback to this scene and remembers it happening in the game, and it messes him up mentally, right? It completely messes him up, and then he has to kind of mentally crawl his way out of that. And when he finally does, and he regains his sanity, he's stronger than he ever was before, and the flashback perfectly represents that. The flashback from the graveyard represents it being a flashback in Cloud's head, and when you do flash it back, you have to discard your hand, representing him like losing his sanity, but then you draw 4 cards representing him clawing his way out of that and being stronger than he was to begin with. Literally all of it is perfect. Everything about this card is so perfect from a flavor perspective that I have to slow clap, man. They are absolutely nailing it with flavor in this set, and I'm super, super proud. And this card is just awesome, and it is a perfect representation of that. In addition, I think it's going to be really, really powerful as a standard sort of one-sided sweeper if you build your deck right. The one downside, the one thing that I'm a little frustrated about, is if you choose a creature with this, and then your opponent responds by killing that creature at instant speed, I'm almost entirely sure that this spell is going to fizzle, and you're going to get kind of blown out, and that feels super, super bad. But it does have the flashback ability, so that even if you get blown out, you still get to keep some value. You still can cast it another time. You still get to draw cards after you do. It still has value, even if your opponent uses their instant speed removal to fizzle this. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it is kind of a bummer that I'm pretty sure that's how the card works, and your opponent does have the opportunity to potentially blow you out. That means instant speed removal is going to continue to be important, because other than that, I think this card is stupid powerful, and one of the best sort of one-sided sweeper, or potentially one-sided sweeper, that we've seen in quite a while. And I just love this. I love this card so much. But that's going to do it for today. I'm going to continue to keep on top of all of the spoilers. We'll probably have another video dropping tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. If you haven't already, please like the video. Helps me get it out to so many more people and helps the channel grow. I honestly mean that. It does so much. You guys don't understand how much just one single like helps me out in the long run. So please hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new so you don't miss a single video on the way. I still have a couple of extra videos to get to as well. We're going to go over all of the cards that are getting new art treatments that are old cards but flavorfully being changed into Final Fantasy references. We're going to have a whole video dedicated to that because there is a bunch of those coming in the Through the Ages bonus sheet coming in this set, and I want to make that a separate video. And then I am going to have a separate video for all of the commander cards that aren't legal and standard coming in the commander decks and the commander set for this. That's going to be another video as well. I'm kind of just waiting for all of those to be spoiled, and we're going to tackle them all at once. So that one should be fun as well. So look forward to a ton of content on the way. I've even got some deck techs lined up that I'm pretty excited about that I think you guys will enjoy. But with all of that out of the way, take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck techs, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.